Hallelujah, Jehovah be praised. May his name forever be glorified in the name of Jesus Christ. So greetings everyone. Um, Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my musings. I'm a faith-based counselor, and I talk about any issue that comes to mind, any matter that comes to mind, and there are a lot of issues going on around. I was just thinking about health today, and I was thinking about salt. How I was thinking about health, and adding salt to some things, and I was thinking about the pureness of salt, like the sea salt, and in my mind, someone was like, "Oh, the question somebody might ask at that point is table salt not from the sea?" But when we say sea salt, we all know we mean it in its like the least processed form. Like the least processed form. Nothing beyond crystallizing it. Nothing beyond that. There is no cleansing in quotes, no, well, there might be some sieving, right? But beyond that, there is no bleaching and all of that. And as I was thinking about sea salts coming in any color but white, thinking of black salt, pink salt. I'm seeing that in supermarkets not right now. It does my heart good because there was a time when we did not even know that there was anything like Himalayan salt, for instance, or black salt of all things, right? But now we know. And people are willing to pay premium or save at least towards getting those salts. They're very expensive. That's the thing. And then what came to my mind after thinking about table salt being white, what came to my mind was also rice. Rice is not white most of the time. Not snowy white at least. It's brown. There is black rice, brown rice, which is most common. There's golden rice. There are probably other kinds of rice, but those are the ones that I know. For white rice to even be white, you have to bleach it. And then I was now thinking, what is this thing about turning things that are not white into white? And white, what many of people will call white supremacy, I would like to call it white imposition, the imposition of whiteness in our society, in our culture, that has damaged in the last century, and even way beyond that, into the past, that has damaged health globally, that has damaged mental health, psychological health, and physical health globally. And we are now forced, because now that white imposition has the imposition of whiteness on our society has been exposed as the impostor that it is. It has been exposed. It has been like it's now seen as the scam that it is. Like, the exaggeration of a salesman about how whiteness is the best. And so even sugar, ladies and gentlemen, even sugar is bleached white. My God. And it's not white. By the time sugarcane doesn't even come as, even sugarcane is not white, it's cream. But by the time it's crystallized, it gives you brown color, golden brown a lot of times. Some people will even add some things to it. Maybe they will juice they will juice the whole, what is it called now, the whole cane, that is, plus the peelings, not just the inside. They're not going to peel off the back, both the peelings and all. They're going to juice everything and crystallize everything. So I guess it depends on the species. Like, there was a time I bought a brown sugar. The taste was just divine. Honestly, it was divine. I don't know what they added to it. Maybe molasses or something. I don't know, but it was. Then again, I found out that molasses is actually is also made from sugar cane, brewed or whatever in a different way, but made from sugar cane. And it comes black or brown at least. The one I have with me right now is very, I won't say it's black, but it's very, very, is deep brown, maybe black mixed with gold or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's black strap, uncultured, or on something something, unsulfured. Yeah, that's the word, unsulfured. So you now look at our foods, even bread. Ladies and gentlemen, flour does not come looking white, but then it gets bleached. Why go through the process of bleaching? Like, bleaching, apparently the history of bleaching is not even to the skin, it's actually to the food as well. Like, food being bleached. Anytime you see food that is pure white, most of the time they are bleached. So the bleaching of skin, I don't think it started with the bleaching of skin. I think it started with the bleaching of food. And of course, when you bleach food, what happens is that everything that makes it food has been bleached off it. Because what makes food is not the mass, the physical mass of the food. No. What makes food is the nutrients, the minerals, the essential minerals, the essential vitamins in the food. Now, back to salt that I started with. Salt has a lot of sea minerals in it, and it's not that easy to get sea minerals. Like, I mean, for you to get seaweed and all, like, that one is expensive for obvious reasons, because it's going to take those who dive into the ocean to, get those kind of foods and vegetables. But salt is like the closest and the easiest way we can get to, is the easiest way we can get to, what is it called now, the nutrients that are embedded. Oh yeah, salt is the not the easiest per se, is the vegetarian or vegan way of taking in salt, the essential minerals and all that is in the ocean, that is found in the ocean, right? Another way to get to that is, the for those who are, animal, that eat, that are not vegetarians, right? Obviously seafood, like, the fish, the crabs, the lobsters. I don't know whether those are found in the sea, but you get the idea. So, but the non-vegetarian and common way, and even if you're gonna, that's the thing, even if you're gonna prepare these foods, you're gonna have to add salt to it. So at the end of the day, salt is really essential because, well, for one, is rich in iodine and all, and the fact that by the time you bleach salt, you have to add to it because there isn't much left. By the time they bleach, they now say with, they would now say, oh, this salt has vitamin A in it. Whereas if it was not bleached, there wouldn't be a need to add anything to it. It's already, like, it's crystallized, it's concentrated. So I mean, and I was just thinking about getting myself sea salt at this point because I'm just thinking about, okay, so what else do I add to my food supplement? Now, when it comes to food supplements, they can be as basic as salt, as apple cider vinegar. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily pills. When we say supplement, we don't just mean pills. We mean extracts, right? Supplements could also be extracts like essential oils. Those are also supplements. Essential oils, where herbs and spices really. So in their concentrated form. So those are the things that we need. And again, I was just thinking about. I didn't see it from that angle, that the imposition of whiteness in our culture globally, unfortunately, is affected everybody. Everybody, even the Chinese and Asians. Or okay, let me just say Chinese. Even the Chinese that you can say were not colonized. I don't know, man. They seem to have a very. They're also they also favor whites. And that's why you find that black people are most uncomfortable there. I will never forget during COVID when black people were accused of spreading COVID. And so they were sort of profiled and mistreated for that in China during COVID. India, well, I think India is kind of legendary for being opposed to anything that is not white. Anything white is excused, but anything non-white, they will find any excuse to be mean, to be cruel, to they'll find any excuse to be unkind. But with whiteness, they would excuse any unkindness. Maybe I need to write that down. Whiteness is excusing, unkindness in anything white. And then finding excuses to be unkind to non-whites, right? It's kind of odd where we think that white, even holiness, is also attached attached to whiteness, like white clothes and all of that. But then white means different things to different people in different cultures, So the imposition of whiteness is just, I'll just focus on the health part. It's affected not just the mental health, the cultural well-being of our global society, but at the same time, it has affected our health. And now, I think it has come to its head, or it has run out of fuel. That is the imposition of whiteness, has run out of fuel. And now, because there are so many diseases multiplying and many solutions declining. Ooh. There are so many diseases multiplying and solutions declining. Wow. God, thank you. I'm on a rhyme today. Not funny. But it's just interesting. And then you now realize that people are now forced to go back. And it reminds me of a proverb that says, if you have been traveling a road and you get to a point where you don't know what is ahead, you don't know where to go, or rather to go straight ahead is no longer wise, is no longer certain. You are unsure of what is in front of you. You had better go back. And that's where we are right at right now. We are going back to how things were before whiteness became an imposition, was imposed on us as a global society. We recognize whites and everyone just moved on. No one was that fascinated with color until some people decided that whiteness was a thing and it meant superiority, you know. And recently I have these thoughts that inferiority complex and superiority complex are one and the same. They are different sides of the same coin, you know, because a person that feels inferior will want to may, okay? A person that feels inferior is the one that tries to insist that they are superior to other people. If you don't feel like you're inferior, if you don't feel small, you will not feel the need to tell people that you are superior to them. Because the issue of superiority will not even come up, right? Now, a person who is inferior, who feels inferior rather, like I said, there are two sides of the same coin. A person is who feels inferior might try to convince, some of them will try to convince other people who feel inferior that they are that how let me say it this way. Now there are two types of inferior people. One set feels inferior and they internalize that inferiority and they move in that inferiority. They don't value or anything they have. They don't see anything they do as a big deal. They're always looking to what other people do as the best. They're always looking at what other people are doing as better. And so what do they do in that instance? And what happens is that they become victimized by those who feel inferior and are jealous of what other people are doing. And so what they do is that they try to convince the other people that they are inferior, right? So there is one set that would put a an inferior a superiority on itself and make itself and exalt itself over everybody else. Note, I said exalt itself. No one exalted it. It exalted itself over everyone else and convinced other people through psychological brainwashing and should anyone who doesn't feel inferior or feels that all human beings are equal. They are equal. They're not the same, but they're equal. Those ones are always seen as threats and they are often attacked. And worse, a lot of times. So that those who don't feel inferior nor feel superior may not convince those that have internalized inferiority. So those who feel like the way for me to survive is to convince other inferior people that they are inferior, not just inferior, but inferior to me. Whereas, and by the way, while I'm at it, all the things that they have done that I like, I would say I would erase the history of it from them and then convince them or their children that I invented those things. I made their lives better. Their parents didn't do anything for them. So in other words, Let me talk about what I did not invent that I said I invented. Let me talk about the the modern society that I said I created. Let me talk about all the, modern amenities and all of that that I've created. Let me talk about those. Let me focus on that. Every time someone brings up genocides or racism or unfairness or inequality, I will keep bringing up the things that I invented, things that I did to make everywhere better. Or I created roads, as if there were no roads before you got there. If there were no roads before you got there, you will not find your way there. You understand what I mean? So you created your own road. There were roads, but you decided to create your own road and say you created roads. There were inventions and innovations in cultures in these other people, but you decide that you made anything that was invented. I mean, these days the mud houses that some people have used to insult Africans, some people are saying they invented it. Can you imagine that? Oh, they have discovered. Are you crazy? How can you discover something that some of your own people that look like you were using to insult us? Oh no, you did not invent that. But hey, that is part of white imposition, where you convince, like, everybody knows where something comes from, but you feel like, I'm gonna put out a lie and I will keep saying it and keep saying it and keep saying it. And if I say it long enough, people will forget the truth and believe what I'm saying. But alas, people have a strong will to live. And so because they have a strong will to live, they are going back to what was. And they're beginning to discover that, or rather, remind themselves that what worked then could work now. Where when they have been convinced that what worked for our ancestors, they were not that effective, or they are no longer effective. But now we find that, oops, my body feels better when I take sea salt that is not bleached white. I kind of feel better and my metabolism improves and I feel full. Not only do I feel full, but my metabolism improves when I eat rice that isn't white rice. And I find that, oh my God, brown sugar, any shade of brown sugar, actually tastes better, richer. Ooh, let's not talk about the richness. My God, like, if you have tasted brown sugar, I assure you, you will not want to eat white sugar again, ever. Like, you just be moving between honey and brown sugar, because you'll be like, what? The taste is phenomenal. I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. I bought icing sugar at some point to make cookies, and when the flour had finished, and I was just not interested in getting more flour or margarine, cooking margarine. So I decided, okay, I was going to use the remaining icing sugar. You know, the sugar is it granulated now, or powdered sugar that is used to decorate cake. Okay. So I said, okay, I'm going to use it in my paps and in my, anything I need to add sweetener to. I feel that sweetener can be added to. And when I tasted it, it wasn't that nice. Why? Because my taste buds have gotten used to a richer form of sweetness, like honey, like brown sugar. And so now it just tasted bland. I was like, I just didn't feel the sweetness at all, as much. Like, it's like I had to add more. for it to even make sense. And even that more, it was just like, I didn't feel it. Of course, it took a while for me to transition from not eating sugar to from eating sugar to not eating sugar. I mean, there was a time when eating sugar was it was just what we did. And then studies came out that sugar was not good for the health. I mean, it should be replaced with honey occasionally, right? So it takes a while, but it's that thing where they say when lies run for 100 years or 20 years, it takes the truth only one day to catch up with it. And that's where we're at right now. The truth has caught up with us from the past. And now we are, the truth has been brought forward. And now we are at the age where we are rediscovering things that was commonplace for our ancestors 200, 400 years backwards. Like it was just, they were not backward. They were not as unintelligent as we were taught. And it made me realize that white imposition taught us that everything our ancestors did was wrong and bad for us. Yeah. They exaggerated some of the things that our ancestors did. They were human. They had bad people among them, but we were made to believe that all things bad were embedded with our ancestors, and that for us to be good as a society, we need to move away from everything that our ancestors did. And of course, that would include our hair texture, of course, and our skin color, apparently. Hence, the bleaching some people do and the wearing of straight hair that doesn't come out for some people's head naturally, like the South Indians, for instance, or the like some Asians. As much as I love, because there is versatility in Chinese movies, and I've watched a whole lot. Honestly, I need to be paid for this. I've watched a whole lot of it. If someone gets paid for watching Chinese movies, my dear, I'll be rich from there. Like I'm getting royalties from watching Chinese. Oh God, I would be rich. Like I've watched a lot of it. I've watched a lot of Asian, Indian, Chinese. I'm not much of a K-drama person. I'm not much of a K-drama person. I don't know. I never caught the bug. Someone tried to, advertise it to me at some point. I mean, everybody's always about K-drama. Okay. So someone talked about boys over flowers for me. And I was like, oh, really? Boys over flowers. So I said, okay. I decided to watch it, and yeah, it was quite captivating. But and that's the thing about their story, it's quite captivating. However, so are Chinese movies, so I kind of prefer Chinese, maybe because I learn a lot more from there than I do anywhere else. I think the only Korean, assuming it's Korean, yeah, I think it's Korean. The only Korean series that I would love to watch again. And usually I prefer the historical ones. Although the violence there is a little, that's the thing. The violence is always so something else. And that's the thing. With Korean, chances are you're going to be faced with either violence or explicit content in there. So that puts me on an edge. It's just recently that Chinese drama started delving. Before, Chinese drama was, they just implied It was just the best. The you just witness, you just see the passion, you don't see the acts of passion, if you get my drift. So it's that gazing into each other's eyes. So they always make sure that they get people that have on-screen chemistry that is on fire, that any gesture between both of them is just amplified. Of course, with camera effect and all of that, you get to see it from different angles, and you're like, wow, these two are just, you can see the statics between them. Kind of, so you don't get to see much, but you can see the fire, you can feel it even from the screen, kind of, but you don't see anything beyond that. So in other words, except maybe for the violence, which makes it not good for children to watch, right? So it's just recently that they started adding, it's just recently they started adding explicit, stuff to it. And that's why usually I just stick to the historicals. I stick to the historicals because, one, I like modest dressing. And so that is my thing, modest dressing, like covering up. And when it comes to Chinese and Korean culture, they cover up a lot. And so you get to see fashion in a very different light. Because when you are watching Chinese movies or Korean movies of palace noble women and noble men, the Wang Feis, the Tai Feis of China, the Wang Hos. When I say Wang Ho, I think that's Empress Wang Ho. To get to the position of Wang Ho, is a lot. Haha, it's not that easy. A lot of times you stop at Fei, which is a concubine. The best you get is probably imperial concubine. Sometimes a man can go without not having an empress, because to become an empress is a lot. But I digress. So you get to see a lot of covered up stuff there. So it makes me feel very more comfortable watching their stories and all, historically speaking, right? So, but even there, talking about imposition of whiteness, you will see that they use whitening makeup, on their what is it called now? If you have a large nose, or if you have a not large nose, if your nose is wider or has more shape than a straight line, if your nose is shapely, let me just use that word. If your nose is shapely, you're not, oh dear, I've placed something on fire that's been boiling for God knows how long. There goes trying to micromanage fuel. Anyways, maybe I should just sit here because what? Anyways, so you hardly see dark-skinned people or colored people in Chinese or Asian stories. Hardly. And if and when you do see them, they are portrayed as backward, barbaric, wicked, immoral. They just portray them as all kinds of things. Anything but good. They're usually the villains in the story. If they are not portrayed as the villains in the story, they are portrayed as the weaker ones in the story. And usually the person that excels the most, that is the most powerful person in that story, is never a colored person. So even when they show, like in General and I, even when they show the colored kingdoms, funny, they call those that, have proximity to whiteness in this story, they portray them as having kingdoms. Those that are their skin are less white, they have rich, their skins are richer in terms of looks. They call those ones the tribes. They call them the tribes, while they call themselves the kingdoms and the empires. Cute, isn't it? So you find that even in stories like General and I, where the kingdom of that had more that had people of color in it, the kingdoms that have rich skinned people there, and I love the portrayal, but at the same time I also saw the disparity. They portrayed the person that was the general in that story was a white skinned person, and you can even see through the makeup that if you look closely, like they added some extra pearly white, to his face to make him look very, very pale, right? So he looked very pale. While you see the Liang people, they were considered powerful. In fact, they were considered very powerful. People usually stayed out of their way, and they were. But then Chubeje, the general in the General and I, was white in terms of looks, was slim. You understand? He wasn't bulky or none of that. He was white, he was slim. And that's another thing. You rarely see men in these dramas, except maybe for Korean, which apparently Korean men are tall and there's no helping that. So if they could, they probably would make themselves skinny. But Chinese, though, I'm getting tired of seeing Chinese men look really skinny. Like they're looking so skinny. They usually pick the ones that are skinny. So most of the time they pick the very young men who are just growing up, teenagers, guys in their early 20s, specifically from, they specifically pick the ones that are skinny, or they tell them that they're not, I don't know what they do, but it's not a coincidence that all of them are just skinny and pale, literally, skinny and pale, and they're supposed to have all these energy to jump up and move about and all. Maybe they do, but I've also seen the few times that I've seen really, tall, bulky, with rich skin. They're rare, but it comes off every now and again. And I would say they tried in General and I, showing the people of color as good people, even though they show them as the less powerful ones, but they still show them as good people, right? And the men, like, they are our kindreds. They are black people. Honestly, they show them as black people because these guys had dreads. No, not dreads. I see. I'm getting there. I'm getting there where I'm correcting my words about some things. They had locks. They were wearing lock, and oh Lord, they were wearing it in different ways. Some would shave both sides of the head and have the front, and then they would add jewelry. Ladies and gentlemen, they would add jewelry to those locks, and those locks would be as long as the way they wore their hair, and then they wear headband over it. I mean, everyone in the comment section was like, look, please. I mean, Triple J is fine and all, but can we talk about these Liang men? They're hot. They're hot, and they show them as men that are kind, fighting for their country and all whatnot. At least for one, they showed the a pale skinned guy as a villain instead of the rich skinned, black person, a person of color as the villain. So maybe that's just the difference. But I'm just trying to, I don't know, what other ways have you seen the imposition of whiteness in our society? Because this is just to mention a few. I wanted to stick with the food, but alas, I went into movies because, well, movies are my favorite things as well. So, I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there. By the time we get used to seeing color in our food, I think that we might become more comfortable with de-obsessing ourselves, if you may, from thinking that white is king, and just see that there is beauty in all colors, really. There is beauty in every color, and health actually in it. You know what they say, eat your colors, right? Like don't just eat things that are pale looking, for crying out loud. Don't just eat things that are pale. They're not the healthiest meals to start with. Try and mention to me any food that is white that is actually the healthiest. Like when it comes to top 5 healthy foods, anything white does not come in there. Nothing white comes in there. In terms of 5 top healthy foods globally, you can't mention rice because rice isn't white. It's brown, black even, golden. Those are the colors. So there you have it. It's worthy of note to say, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. And they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. Now, if you know your God, you would have a healthy recognition of yourself, a healthy value of yourself. You will feel neither superior to anyone, nor will you feel inferior to another person. You would not allow anyone to treat you as an inferior person either. You will just not, you will reject it. And like I said, we're getting there because food is like the easiest way to get to people. And if people are beginning to find that white food with whitish colors are actually not the best for them, they begin to decolonize themselves. They have no choice. It's either you remove yourself far away from whitened foods that have been whitened and bleached, or you stay in pain. Literally. You understand? It is all there is to it, really. Please treat others the way you want to be treated, and don't allow anybody else to treat you the way you will not treat other people. Until next time, peace.